Welcome to the first episode of the Common Threads podcast by David Allen and Digital Blueprint Marketing. And to get things started here, we'll just quickly introduce ourselves. So I'll toss it over to you first, boss man, and give us a little rundown on what people can expect here from this new series.
Yeah, for sure. So it's been a couple years. We've been wanting to do a podcast, and we've had so much support for the brand through the ups and downs and everything else, and we've always been transparent about building our brand. So for me, the podcast just was natural evolution of, okay, let's dive deeper and let's show more of the under the hood of what it's really like to be an entrepreneur, to grow a business, how difficult it is, and also the successes that do come with it, because we actually don't highlight a ton of those. We post a lot of photos on social media. We very fortunate to work with a lot of celebrities and successful individuals. But with that being said, we really focus, just like a lot of entrepreneurs do, is on the negative stuff. And I never wanted to make the journey look easy, and I never wanted to make the journey look like it was something that didn't need hard work to go into it. So what you're going to see over the next, several weeks and months through 2021, we're going to have various celebrities that we work with, various athletes, successful businessmen and women, and basically anybody who just really goes above and beyond and understands what it takes to get to that next step in business. And, as we continue to grow our clothing brand and our marketing company, it's going to allow us an opportunity to continue to add just new and exciting guests that we can continue to share their story, and i.e. really tie in the commonalities or the common threads between fashion, entrepreneurship, the hustle, and everything else that's involved.
And my name is Chris. I am creative director with David Allen Clothing here since the beginning, and creative director for Digital Blueprint Marketing, and everything just kind of how you just put it all ties together. And that's where this idea was kind of bred, was we do a lot in the fashion industry. Obviously, we have a digital advertising agency. How do you find the commonalities in those two different worlds and bring them together so that the content that we talk about appeals to people on either end of that, whether they are a business owner who's looking for inspiration and marketing ideas and cool new content things that they could try, or just philosophical ideologies of marketing that we use. But then people that are deep in the fashion world, and people that love professional sports and will find value in some of our special guests that we'll have here. So really the name of the game is commonality. And I think maybe a good place to start here is, for you, what is the common thread that led you from the initial journey of David Allen Clothing and the jump you made to begin that journey through where you are now, being the owner of multiple successful companies, and what you're looking to do next?
Yeah, so a lot of people don't. Can you pump a little volume on this too? And bear with us. The first couple episodes, we're going to be ironing out some kinks and making sure that we get everything handled, appropriately on that side. So, a lot of people don't know where I actually started this journey, and it was prior to David Allen Clothing. And ironically, Chris was the first person that I called. I think I was 24, 25 at the time, and I had an idea to start a necktie company. So that was, my early to mid 20s, and then I had two failing businesses, after that inevitably led me to doing the custom clothing. And, I think the one thing that I've learned through this entire process, it's been about 10 years or so, 11 years that I've been attempting to be an entrepreneur overall, and half of that successful and half of that failures. And I think the one thing that really correlates between everything is just you instantly learn there's no quick way to be successful. You instantly learn that there's no, hey, celebrity A posts something and then all of a sudden you have this massive following, or you automatically sell millions of dollars worth of product. That just doesn't happen. So the quick kick in the ass that I received was that message was, hey, if this is going to happen, there are reasons that people say it takes 10 years to be an overnight celebrity or an overnight star or overnight success, whatever the lingo would be. And I look at the negatives that we had in the beginning, or the failures that we had in the beginning, as being the catalyst to understand that it was going to be a grind to actually do this. And, we started out with the necktie company, which was called Spearing Threads. And I had 3 business partners on that. Quickly realized that not everybody's meant to be an entrepreneur. And, I had partners, and it just never was anything other than a side excitement to them. And for me, I always had grander visions of just being a successful business person, because I just trusted myself. As the years progressed and one business failed, then, that led us into the Proper Knot, which is an interchangeable necktie, device that I patented and created. And that was kind of my first solo bit as an entrepreneur. And that was the ultimate, okay, I have something. I think it's going to lead to something. I don't know where that's going to go. I thought I would have sold millions of those units by now. And that was another, business that I started that quickly said, okay, here, you really are in for a long haul with this, and the Proper Knot, fortunately, doing that business and trying to create that product, that's when Chris and I really started teaming up together from hey, I need your skill set and your help, because he was the first person, you were the first person that I called, whenever I had the idea to do anything business related. And, after seeing the creative, the ideas, the direction that you pointed me for the Proper Knot, it showed me how much more valuable it was going to be long term by having you on the team and really getting things going. And I think when we started out, you were, and I haven't even thanked you for this, but you were charging me for everything, right? Photo shoots, and you were trying to do your side hustle. And then as we've grown together and started businesses together, I've been fortunate enough to be able to absorb those costs into business and everything else. So I was actually talking the other day and needed to thank you for that. And I truly mean that.
Yeah.
Because there's so much that's out there that businesses need help with. And I think, not jumping all over, but that's a part of this podcast that I'm very excited about, is we want to also be able to help people and give them tips to be successful, and things that we literally just went through in the recent months, years, weeks, whatever it would be. But, circling back to continuing the story and getting things going, one business led to another, then the Proper Knot, and Chris and I kept going and diving into that. And, the next step was I can't make this product successful at $19 and get out of a day job. It just, the margin in the product wasn't big enough to do anything. And it just said, okay, well, what's next? And I understood the power of fashion. I understood the power of presentation and first impressions and all those things when I was formerly in medical sales. That is really the trigger that said, okay, there's an opportunity here to sell another product and to take it to the next level. And then the suiting started taking off, getting legs, and that led us to create another company with the digital blueprint marketing, which led us to get into the mask business, which we did for the pandemic. And I think 6 to 8 weeks, we sold over 500,000 masks, something along those lines. And we were able to donate $25,000 to a massive Allegheny Health Network, so a massive institution in the healthcare world. So, that's the journey and the path that we've been on, and we'll dive deeper into these segments as we go. But there's so much before David Allen Clothing that happened that people are unaware of, and I never really highlight that. This is really the first time I've talked about that.
So, do you ever think about wishing that you could go back in time, even 6 years, and give yourself a pep talk and say, don't lose sleep or turn gray from these failures, embrace them, because that is a very needed commodity to get to where you're going to be. And I think a lot of business owners, entrepreneurs, their first failure feels like the nail in a coffin, and let's just close up. It failed. So what would you go back and say to yourself as a rookie small business owner?
So I don't know if you've seen it on like Instagram or social media anywhere, where there's questions that pop up, and it's like a meme of some sort, where it will say, would you rather have, be 50 years old and have $40 million in your bank, or have all the knowledge you have and start at age 5 or 10 or 12 or whatever it is? And that question is so unique, because I would never take the money. And why I say that is because the education that and the knowledge that has come with failures and has come with constantly getting kicked in the ass over and over and over again, it honestly makes you feel invincible, because you realize two things. You realize, one, how simple business is, right? At the same time, it's extremely challenging and very difficult. So it's a weird statement when you say that. But also the other thing is the personal growth that comes along with it. And I've fortunately been able to find out the true definition of happiness. And you know, obviously this year, Chris was able to quit his job, you know, at a large agency. And I'd love you to talk about that here in a second. But I don't think that if I would not have gone the path that I've gone and been through the things that I've been through, I would have an understanding or know how to grow a business the way that I do. And failure is the most educational piece that people say, and it's cliche, but it's true.
I think that's why so many successful entrepreneurial stories start with just having the guts and the drive and the focus versus starting with the capital.
Yep.
I think there's no stat in my lexicon to pull up, but I would think that businesses that just start with a ton of money probably don't last too long, because they just feel like they're already comfortable because they have the money, and they probably don't use it right. Versus if you have just a small amount of resources but a dream, that's a pretty dangerous entrepreneur right there.
Yeah, and I, you know, I've been fortunate to run into all kinds of entrepreneurs in the suiting business as I've sold to different business owners, and I've seen both ends of the spectrum. You know, even recently I had a client of mine that I've become good friends with, and you know, their path was far different than my path, and it really hit home, because I just think the appreciation for things are so much more different, and the way you treat people is just different, and the thanks that you give people, man, everybody, whether you buy a $140 shirt or now, you know, a $70 sweatshirt or $75 pair of joggers we offer, I value those people so much more, and I would never disrespect anybody, right? So I think what it does is when it teaches you to grind it out whenever things are terrible, and I didn't have, you know, hundreds of thousands of dollars or millions of dollars that went only into the business to grow. I think it molds a different individual, and there's nothing wrong with the other path by any means. You know, I personally, I'm glad I went the way that I did. You know, it's been really, really difficult, but, you know, the things when you experience in life and you understand what life's about, that's where you get the knowledge.
And I think one of the big common threads that I obviously know, knowing you for so long and being in business with you, it's the same common thread that I share and our other business partner shares, is being good, humble people and wanting to help other people. It's such a simple sentence, but you either walk it or you don't.
Right.
And everything we've ever done and you've ever done has kept that lens of, okay, if we do this new initiative, this new campaign, this new product, this new whatever, how can we also use that to help people, to donate, charity, things like that? And I think that's been maybe one of the biggest common threads we've had, that has kind of steered our ship with decision making. If something doesn't feel right and have that element of giving to it, we might kind of pull that off the table.
Right.
But if there's something that feels really out there, but there's a giving element or something that just we know will be better for general public or consumers, then we know it feels right in the gut. And that's another one of those intangibles that you don't really think about when you're starting out, that's a very important thing. So where did that stem from with you as far as being so young as an entrepreneur? You would think that everything needs to be, okay, me, how do I get to that next stage, next checkpoint, versus I'm not worried about the next checkpoint. I just want to do what's right. So how did you make that decision to start the fashion show so early on in the game and carry that through all the way?
So, I mean, it's a difficult question to answer because I don't know. I can only kind of explain my thought process on why I've done certain things, or why I've, came to you and said, hey, what do you think of this idea? And I look back at our first fashion show that we had. I was doing some work with the American Cancer Society, and we were doing something for breast cancer awareness and trying to raise money. And I had a friend that worked there at the time who also helped me do some things in the clothing. Shout out to Brian Ghoulish on that. He's an awesome dude, and really helped get a lot of things in the first 6, 12, 18 months of business really going for us. And I just think you realize how many people are out there that just need help. Or there's so many people out there that just don't have the same situation that you do, or not in the same position. And I just don't like that. And it's not the fact that I don't like it from any other standpoint of like, man, I feel like I'm super blessed and super fortunate to have what I have, or to be presented with even the mindset that I have, when I know other people don't have that mindset. And the power that you have as an individual, and how you look at your day to day when you serve other people or help other people, there's no better rewarding feeling than that. And I've seen other sides of that in business, where I've had people that I've associated with through business and learned who they are, that have only done things if they were going to get something in return. And I just think that's one of the ugliest qualities a person can have. And it may work forever. It may be a tool that I'm not using that has hindered a little bit of growth in some capacity, but I don't care, because I just believe in being good and doing what's right. It's always about setting an example. It's always about taking the lead and putting yourself in a position to help other people. And there's two things that happen. One, the feeling that you get by helping other people, there's nothing that's more rewarding. There's not a dollar value that you could put on that. Seeing someone else appreciate or smile or say thank you because you've done something for them, a gesture, created something, whatever, is just fucking awesome. And then the other side of that is you always get something in return from that too. And if you don't, who cares? But the good juju or karma or whatever you want to call it that happens, I think we're a testament of that. We've been fortunate to have so much support in the community. And when we had our first fashion show for the American Cancer Society, I had no idea if 3 people were going to show up, or 5 people, or 1,000 people. And I remember my parents told me, my dad was nervous. He was like, yeah, I wonder if anybody's going to even show up to this thing on the first one we had. And then they pull up to the strip district in Pittsburgh and see this, holy shit, magnificent spectrum of what we put on. And we had 350 people on the first event.
I remember being skeptical too. I mean, I coming from my music background, I know how hard it is to throw a launch event that's kind of feels like a concert, and all the pressure and promoting, and so I was 50-50. I wanted it to be great, but at the same time, first thing out of the gate, you don't know what's going to happen. And I remember standing in the back and just seeing it all, and just being like, I think we have something here. And I think a big reason for that is success right out of the gate with the fashion show was, like I said earlier, it wasn't about me, look at me, fashion designer. It was, I'm just a tool to you're a tool. I'm just a source to bring these resources to a good foundation.
Yeah. So
at that, and bringing in the celebrities as well, who also shared that same, being a vessel for raising money, and not, hey, look at me and let me sign 1 million autographs. They were there to do charitable work, and
they all mingled with everybody too, which was incredible.
Yeah, that I still remember all the pictures in the photo album there of just seeing people we went to college with or even high school with, and standing next to pro wrestlers and Steelers, and it was just a different thing that nobody's really used to here in Pittsburgh, because frankly, in 2015 or 16. If you Googled Pittsburgh fashion show, you're not going to see much. Right. You're probably only going to see the Steelers. Versus if you Google that in L.A., New York, Chicago, you're going to see 1,000.
Right.
So that really set a precedent that I think laid a framework for where the clothing company is now, and the perception of it in the city and even beyond the city now, frankly. But it all stemmed from wanting to do good and that humble approach. And for me, that humble approach I didn't just pick that up in marketing. That stemmed from everything I did before it.
Right.
And, I think about my, 10 years as a touring musician. You don't leave that venue until you say thank you to the sound guy, the stage manager, the bartenders, even the person attending the bathrooms.
Yep.
You say thank you.
That's really awesome.
And there's no rule that says you have to do that. And frankly, a lot of people in that world don't do that. But the next time you roll through there, they're going to look forward to your event. They're going to want to help you. And you just have a good name associated. And, that's something that stays with me now where we are also is, saying thank you to custodians that clean your building. Things like that. It's such a small thing, but when you do that and you don't do it to just pat yourself on the back, but you do it just because that's instinct, I think you're going to find success no matter what, because you're grounded with stuff that isn't intangible that a lot of people don't get.
Every single year for every single fashion show that we had, I always get text messages, where are you, where are you, where are you? And until you just said that, I never thought of it, but I'm the last one to leave the event. And I remember the first one, and it was in the Strip District, and I was standing outside, and I remember I took a picture, facing I was just leaning up against a stool or a car or something, and I had my feet crossed, and I just took a picture of my lower half, showing the suit that I had on, showing the pants that I had on, and I said, "We'll see you next year," something along those lines. And that was the first year I had aspirations of doing it on Grandview. But to the point of that, I was like, man, I was the last one here. I couldn't, at that time, Uber was pretty new. Cabs in Pittsburgh were terrible. It took me an hour and a half to get to the after party, once the fashion show concluded. But I stayed there because I wanted to thank the food truck people. I wanted to thank the bar owner. You're right, man. It's
groundwork that is very important. And, now for myself in an ownership position of a company, I feel like I'm fully able to enforce that with myself, because even in working for past agencies and things like that, there's lots of late nights where you're working at the office 7 a.m. to 2 in the morning, if you have a pitch the next day or something, and the cleaning crews show up at that time, and they sometimes turn the lights out on you, and sometimes that happens. I've seen people flip out on them. Like, what the fuck? How dare you do that while I'm in here working?
Yep.
Well, they're working too. They're just doing their job. They don't know you're in here at 2 a.m. You're not supposed to.
Right.
But in advertising, it's normal. But to know their name and, say, hey, Sandy, how are the kids? Blah, 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 and just know them as a human, not their job title. That went a long way for me, especially when I lived in Chicago, and I just, I would just remember everybody's name because I didn't know anybody. So everybody I encountered, I just remembered, okay, that was Tanya, diner waitress, South Loop. We talked about Tom Waits' music. I actually had that note in my phone.
Yep.
So next time I went in there, I would remember her name, remember what we talked about. It's like starting a clean, fresh slate and just like going about life differently. But it's an important thing, and
there's nothing you're going to get back from that. Nothing. No. Zero. Right. That's the awesome part about it.
It's easier to just ignore them, put your head down, pretend like you don't see them, but they're a person too, and you're no better.
Right.
They were probably with their family all day, and I was sitting at a computer for 12 hours. Who's a better person in that situation? Right. So I think that's just a big lesson I've learned in personal growth, and then the thread of that going into business, because you see so much of the ugly side.
Yeah.
And where I kind of come into the picture here, as far as my background in advertising, I got that lesson on day one. Actually, I was still in college, and I had my first interview with a big ad agency I had to go out and buy a suit for the first time.
Not your style.
You know, not my thing. I had to go to Men's Warehouse, and I just said, I need a suit.
Yep.
And I think I just got some like funky shark skin, like way too flamboyant for just a college kid. And so I literally Googled. Google was around back then, right?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
I Googled, what do I take to an advertising agency interview? I didn't know anything.
Yeah.
And I printed out a bunch of my creative work and design stuff and some of my writing and threw it in a folder and walked in, and it was an office that was absolutely insane. Millions of dollars in this office to make it look like a piece of art. And it was my first time really even in a big building downtown. So even just seeing the view
It's overwhelming.
for the first time, I was like, this is adulthood. This is adulthood. Holy
Yeah,
shit. Holy
for sure.
shit. Like, I'm not sitting in front of my Xbox in my dorm room anymore. And so I was nervous as hell. And the CEO and the executive creative director walked in, all dressed in black, veterans of the industry. And the creative director was from Brooklyn, thick accent. And I was scared to death.
Which is even more intimidating at that age too, right?
Scared to death of her. And I was just like, I felt myself with my resume, which basically just said I went to college.
Right.
And in my portfolio, I just remember kind of trembling, pushing it across the table. And she put her glasses on, opened the first page, turned to maybe one page, never looked me in the eye once, and then turned to her colleague and said, I don't have time for this. Pushed it away, took her glasses off, and walked out. And the CEO looked at me and was just kind of like, I'm sorry. Like, she does that.
Yeah.
And I just remember thinking, I am going to become better at this than you, more creative, more successful. Maybe I'll steal a client from you someday.
Yep.
And we did. This past year, we did steal a client from them. But
I don't even think I knew that.
Yeah.
We could talk offline on.
Yeah,
on
that
who it
was I had a
good. I think you told me that story. I didn't remember that though.
I had a Hawaiian punch to celebrate that day.
There you go.
But the whole point there was that was my introduction to the industry. Was very kind of brash, in your face. If you suck, I'm going to tell you suck.
Right.
I'm not going to sugarcoat it. And as I got older in the industry, I realized there's actually some upside to that approach, especially in the creative world. It's either good or it isn't.
Right.
And so I did, long story short, I did get hired there eventually.
Yeah. And
I learned a ton from her and the CEO.
Did she ever say anything about that after on
No.
you know, why?
No. The whole time I worked for her, that type of vibe was always there.
Yeah.
But it pushed me because I knew that even if I did something amazing, it would just be like okay, that'll work. So I wanted to keep striving to get better versus gushing over how good this is.
Right.
And I realized, and I think now that I'm in the exact position she had, I'm that way too for myself. If I do something that I think looks good, I don't sit back and stare at it and say,
Move on.
You are a god.
Yeah.
I say, it's right for what it needs to be.
Yep. So let me stop you there. So I think there's a couple things that really think about. Number one, and this is good for other people in business that are just going through different situations. You may have a boss, you may have a coworker, some whatever it is that treats you that way, right? So I think that's number one for you to start fueling you, right? It says, okay, I don't treat people this way. I don't want to be treated this way either. And, that was my first taste in, quote, adulthood for that. And all those experiences that you have along the way are what build you into the person that you are. That situation helped you get through other client situations or helped you deal with another situation from somebody you may have worked with at another agency or another company or in our business. And it teaches you life.
Yep.
I think that's what people, you could look at it and be like, oh, fuck her, whoever it was, like, screw them. And you're right. You are better than them and you are more talented than them. And I feel the same way about myself with people, and that nobody can be better than me, not because of the talent that I have, but the work ethic that comes with it. That's the different edge in the scheme of things.
Yeah. It's that everything lays the groundwork for what you don't know is coming.
Right.
And, in that moment, in that room, while I was still between college and real world, I knew in that moment that being humble was more important to me than being hard ass, frankly. And I knew that I needed to get better, and I did. And then I, learned what to come in that room with next time. And it was like an audition. And the next time I came in and auditioned correctly. So in retrospect, when I tell that story, it sounds like I'm being bitter, but in reality, that's one of those very thankful moments that's how I got born into that industry. Because I think without it, I would have maybe strayed or went somewhere else if I didn't take it correctly.
And those are the things that a lot of people don't understand, is the fact that every opportunity that we have or every situation that we have, it's a learning experience. Mm-hmm. And it's literally, hey, I have two options. I'm going to look at it this way or I'm going to look at it that way. Okay, well, you're going to look at it that way and be pissed off and hold a grudge towards someone. You can keep that grudge in the back of your mind and stay fueled. That doesn't matter, but do not let that shit just kind of filter with you, and that will eat you. It's wasted energy. And that's like a lot of the things that I didn't understand was I've gotten so much better at it. And a lot of it's part to you and also Derek. I think he's one of the best people that I know about walking away or ignoring bullshit and keep going forward, right? It's perspective. And I don't want to be treated that way. You don't want to be treated that way. Well, at some point you're going to have someone that reports to you, which we do now, or I'm going to have a client that I deal with that acts that way, and you know how to handle those people. And then if you get to the point where you're successful enough, in the beginning, you deal with a lot of bullshit. You take your punches, you let people bully you around a little bit more because you need the dollar. But when you get to that point where business is rolling a little bit, or it's not as crucial, not that you don't want the money, but not every dollar is good dollar. And I think that's one of those things that's just one of the many life lessons that have made you be who you are. And it's powerful because that lives with you forever.
Yeah. And I mean, it's kind of an easy segue with everything we just talked about. How does that, and then how do you retain that type of philosophy and self-grounding? March 2020 hits, and something we've never experienced happens, this pandemic situation. Now, there's many layers to that. There is how that affects your career, how that affects your home life, how that affects your own mental health of having to lock yourself in your apartment or house for months. That is a lot of adversity coming out of nowhere. And I think from a business standpoint, we could start there. How did you take the brunt of that? What was that mindset like when everything kind of was announced and the reality of what was happened? Where did your head go? Where did your heart go? And where did your drive go?
So I talked to someone the other day, like the first 2 weeks of this situation was awesome, because for me, it was 5 or 6 years of 7 days a week, not going to bachelor parties, not going to vacations. I stopped drinking because I couldn't afford it. So I gave up so much of my time. At that point, I was, late 20s, 27, this year when this stuff happened, when I started, I was in my late 20s, right? So fast forward the 5 years into 33, 34, 35, and you start looking at different priorities. So when you're in your mid-20s to late 20s, you think things are different. And then what shows you that they're not? Experience. So as hard as it was to give up going to those things, it was what it was, and that was how you get to that point. So whenever the pandemic happened and I had an opportunity to stop, and not feel guilty for stopping or for sitting down for an evening or a weekend or a day, I just loved it. And then after 10 days, 12 days, 2 weeks of it, you start really like, okay, that's not who I am. This sucks. Like, okay, nobody knew what was happening. So, all right, well, so we'll do this for another month. Big deal. Our sales started falling apart. We started losing a lot of revenue, but it's only going to last another 2 weeks or another month. And so until this, today, yesterday, the last couple of days, we're 7, 8, 9 months into this thing, and we still don't have an end in it. Mm-hmm. So I look back whenever, we had an opportunity to say, all right, we got to figure something out, or we could just keep sitting here and waiting on what happens. If that was the case, we would be in such a bad situation right now. And for those of you guys and gals that are listening, Chris and Derek were, they were still employed by somebody else at that time. And, so they had income coming in from another source. I was looking at our business and realizing, holy shit, we are losing money, and we're losing money fast. The government came out with programs at the time, so there was that little glimmer of hope that you can get something. Now towards the end, hopefully, of the pandemic, there's nothing helping us. So if what we ended up doing as a company was, we went through the entire month of March. It was like March 14th or 15th, I believe, was the shutdown date. That pushed us through the entire, 2-week period of the remaining balance of March. And I was just like, this is not getting better. It's not going to happen. And back in February, which my dad actually reminded me of this. I saw him last week and we were talking about it, but I brought up to him, whenever everything was happening overseas in China and Europe, and, I think Australia was hit a little bit earlier too. And I was realizing that there's an opportunity that something's going on. I don't know to the extent of that yet. And I honestly thought it would never make it to the United States. I was one of those people. I was like, it's way, way over there. It's not going to happen. And my dad and I talked about doing masks at that time. And again, nothing, it just was an idea like many of them that I have, and you just put it on the back burner. Well, once the end of March got there and I was like, all right, I can't sit here any longer. This is driving me crazy. I'm not going to watch my business start imploding because it's something that's not in my control. If I fail, I want it to be my fault. Mm-hmm. I don't want it to be because someone else took control over me. So I remember calling Chris and Derek, and it was like a Thursday. It was April like 2nd or 3rd or something like that. And I was like, hey guys, we have to do something. What do you think about selling masks? And I remember the conversation. It was in the afternoon, and I just remember the excitement that I had on it. And then the belief that I was like, I know with watching you and Derek and what you guys have done for our marketing company for other clients, that you guys are the missing piece to what I can't do. And that's the creative, and that's the, the social media targeting and things like that. I just didn't have a background in there. But I saw what you guys did for other customers, and that was really the start of even DBM taking off. I personally, and this is just kind of my thought, was, hey, I could sell these masks on my own. I could run everything through David Allen Clothing. I could create a mask. I could sell it, and I could probably do very well. Or my other option was, hey, I could start another business. I can make Derek and Chris equal business partners, because it's going to take the three of us to be able to do what we wanted to do. And okay, maybe I make less, or maybe I make a lot more because they're doing things that I can never do. And I couldn't pay them to, pay you guys to do that at the time either. So it was like a super crazy, interesting point of that tests the entrepreneurial mindset. And I know a lot of people that would have done it on their own.
Well, even look at where that idea started, because, again, bringing back in the common thread of doing good and the humble, obviously you realize you needed to do something from a business standpoint, but you're also getting hit with 24/7 news coverage saying there's no PPE. There's hospitals can't get things. And if the hospitals can't get things, what are we all supposed to do? So you saw the initiative of, I am literally in the fabric related industry. Right. So how do I just use my resources to supply. And, we sold a lot of masks. We donated a ton of masks to first responders from police departments, fire, EMT, hospitals. And that was really the why behind it, was to do what you could as a fashion designer in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, to make a dent of impact on what was happening. And basically from what we did from a branding, marketing, execution standpoint, if you weren't you, we would have laughed in your face and hung up the phone.
Yep. I remember Derek even said that.
Because if a Friday afternoon, let's say a hypothetical client, you, says, I need a new brand, I need a brand new e-commerce website, I need a shipping logistics automation processes, I need fulfillment integration,
setting up shipping warehouses across the country,
shipping warehouses, customer service, everything, literally brand in a box, and I need it by noon tomorrow. That's basically what happened.
Yeah.
And
it was the most intense 24 hours to start it.
I think part of me was even just not thinking you were serious.
Which he often does.
And I still remember that next Saturday morning, we did a lot of work Friday night, well into 3-4 in the morning. And in my head, it was like, okay, it's something we'll probably like fire on and execute and launch, next week or a week after. And I was driving to my parents' house, and you called me, saying, blank, blank, blank needs done now, and we're flipping the switch at noon. And I was like, I'm driving to go help my and you just had the vision and the gut feeling of this needs to go now. And I literally pulled over like on 79 and had my laptop in the front seat, threw on my hotspot, did the last few things I needed to do from a creative standpoint on the website. And
why did you not tell me like you're fucking crazy? Or I guess I never even asked you that, like, because you and I have a great relationship.
Well, that's a good question. I think I knew that what we had would help a lot of people, because we had the soup to nuts means to do it.
Right.
Because we had every piece of the puzzle needed to do it within our 3 different entities and the David Allen Clothing brand that already existed, and the fabric manufacturing and all of that. So I knew that it would work. And my whole sticking point from the beginning was, and again, coming back to being humble and trying to help the human psyche is what I do with everything in my life. And that's why I was so adamant on, we're putting something on that mask that's going to try and just give comfort to somebody. And we could have easily just done a blank mask, or the first thing was just put a DA logo on it, but it's a pandemic. What the fuck's DA? Like, shit's going bad here.
DA is nothing in that scheme.
Exactly. So that's why I really wanted to put that mantra of, we're in this together, which now is used, globally. But having that there with the mindset of, you're walking down the street, you're power walking through the grocery store because you're trying to get in and out as quick as you can. So was the other 200 people in there.
And we didn't know at that time how serious the disease was.
Right.
And if you were going to get it, did you die? Did something happen? Did you lose a fucking arm? Nobody knew. There's
so many unknowns, and now 9 months later into this, we see people in masks, and it's just normal now, frankly. But at that time, you saw somebody walking towards you in a grocery store in a face mask, it looked apocalyptic to you.
Right.
It looked threatening. It took away the human in this situation. So having that mantra right on the mask, so that as you're walking by somebody, you're just greeted with a message of hope, brings the human element into a very human frightening situation.
Yeah.
So,
and we actually turned down a lot of business that wanted masks without our logo on there. You know, I had a couple friends that are business owners that reached out and got pissed that whenever we said we're not taking our logo off, we're not taking this not logo, but the branding of we're in this together. We wanted, and we were adamant on, if we were going to do this is the way that we were going to do it. And we were not changing that for anybody. And if you didn't want it, go somewhere else. And, you know, even the branding that was on there with the name David Allen was so small in comparison to everything else, because it wasn't about David Allen at all. That was purposely there, obviously, because we have a business and we wanted to get some branding with everything that we did. But the focal point wasn't that. It never was. And I think that's what's really cool about this whole thing. And I mean, you can only imagine, you know, the first time we've in our lifetime ever experienced something to that chaotic level, the unknown, the fear, people losing businesses, people dying, you know, and then, you know, you start diving into the political spectrum with all that stuff getting exaggerated and amplifying everything. And so as people, you know, and business owners, you're in a panic situation. But, you know, breaking down to Chris's original point was, we saw an opportunity, we saw that we could help other people, and there was a purpose behind what we were doing other than just selling a product. It was never about selling a product from day one.
Mm-hmm. And that leads me to the kind of not the mantra, but the idea that, for some people, whether you're a business owner, an athlete, really anybody, when your back's against the wall and the adversity waves are just like crushing, or it's something so daunting that you see coming, that's kind of the fight or flight situation, where every piece of groundwork you've laid up until that point gives you the foundation and kind of fortitude to stand up to whatever's about to happen, being against the ropes. And I know, I think that was kind of the catalyst for everything we have going on, is if you can create a brand and a full shipping logistics situation, customer service in less than 24 hours, and have it immediately start helping people and making an impact and having it kind of go viral as well, there's really nothing in this industry that you could throw at me and us that I would blink at that point. And then the weeks that followed were awful. 24-hour days of computer, constant logistics, customer service. This, you know, regional East Coast Pittsburgh-based clothing company quickly turned into a global launch pad of PPE.
Right.
I don't think any of us thought it would get to that level. We were really just concerned with getting masks to Western Pennsylvania.
Well, and even like, you know, I'm trying to look real quick, but I know the first 24 hours that when we launched the business, I think we did about $55,000 in sales in 24 hours. And that was with posting. That was not even boosting. That was not putting any funding behind it. That was us posting a thing on my Facebook page, and then people buying, tagging, sharing, all this other stuff that came with it. And I'm just crunching this. So that's 5,500 masks in 24 hours, roughly, you know, give or take a little bit. So, and I kind of want to stay on this a little bit more to give everybody an understanding of how crazy and difficult it was as we continue to grow. So even think about this, the first batch that came in when we were talking with our manufacturing partners in Thailand, hey, what's the time frame? What's the turnaround? How long is this going to take? Okay, can you do this? Well, it started out and, you know, they're telling us 7 to 10 days. Of course, me as a sales rep, 3 to 5 days, we'll be able to get it to you, which was just totally bullshit. Not knowing that, just being optimistic that we could do that because we turned other stuff around in a quick time frame. Well, the first batch took 3 weeks to come in. So now you have, you know, 5,500 orders out there or individual masks out there. Well, in an Amazon-minded world where everything's now, we're not putting a product out there in a time that's a global pandemic, in a time that people think they're going to die, in a time where no one else can get them anywhere. we got harassed like crazy. And I think the first batch that came in, the branding on the mask just wasn't, it was an error, or there was a blotch on it or something. So it looked like there was a line down the, the logo of everything. And I remember telling Derek and, you and Derek, like, hey, we can't sell this. And looking back, we probably could have, and it would have been fine. It was what it was at that time. But we took that and we donated that to the hospital in Missouri.
Yeah, and normally in that process, you have a whole quality assurance situation on the manufacturing side and the intake side on the David Allen side, which would catch anything, send it back, replenish.
Right.
Normal quality assurance process that, that there's no time for that. Cut it out.
Yeah,
we know these masks are created to do what they need to do according to the CDC guidelines, and they're already from the certain fabric that already, was water repellent and didn't let things in and out. So we knew the product was fine. It was just a cosmetic thing that normally would never be acceptable, but in this situation, get it in, get it out. And that's a business, learning that is new, because we've never faced that situation where this product is a, PPE. This isn't a fashion garment. So getting it in the hands of people is way more important than, having a couple extra stitches on a logo. And that's,
which is hard for me to accept that.
Exactly.
Because I'm in a business of people. I'm used to having people buy thousands of dollars per product, hundreds of dollars for one item, and it's got to be perfect. It's got to look good. So I know, the three of us were kind of in a lull stage where it was like none of us really knew what to do. And, we saw that the hospitals and the first responders needed help, and there was a whole hospital system in Missouri that the government wasn't helping them. They had nothing. They didn't have N95s. They didn't have the blue hospital masks. They had nothing. And the thanks that they provided us was well worth it. Mm-hmm. They were so appreciative and so thankful of what we were able to do for them. All right, cool. Now let's keep going, because I'm okay with the bullshit that we're getting from customers now. Hey, this is a scam, right? We had to deal with people saying we were a scam in the beginning until we started shipping product out and getting product out, because, there's people that take advantage of situations where people are more sensitive, and, there's internet scams left and right. So not only did we have to provide and prove that we weren't, the customer service, and shout out to Krista on that, the harassment her and Missy had to deal with. And even, I remember calling you guys a couple of times, like, dude, like, guys, we got to fix this. And there's a problem here. Like, people are starting, give us negative reviews. We had 5 or 6 people call the Better Business Bureau, which they're a bunch of bullshit anyway, but that bothered me, because it was like, man, for 5 years we built this clothing brand. And for 5 years, customer service was our number one, and we never had anything, a couple bad comments here and there, but you're going to have that. But it was like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 negative comments back to back to back. And then we had to fight it on social media, where I told our team, I was like, reply to everything. Mm-hmm. Just until we can get a product in their hands, reply to everything. Going dark will not help this. Yep. And I don't know if that was the right answer or not. That was just how we wanted to operate.
Yeah, it was the right answer and the right call. Because at the end of the day, this wasn't just, hey, my $30 pair of Uggs is a day late from Amazon. How dare you? This is I need to go to the grocery store for my first trip out of the house.
Yeah.
To go get a month's worth of supplies, and the grocery store is all I'm seeing on social media is everything off the racks. It looks like a zombie movie. Yeah.
And they mandated to get into the grocery store, you needed a mask.
Exactly. So the people's reactions, I wouldn't fault them. And I think having a human on the other end being very candid and open about the customer service and everything, it in our advertising industry, it's called crisis management, and it's how can you still portray your brand properly in times of crisis, so that you don't lose the integrity of the company and you don't belittle the customer's concern. And, you know, our team knocked that out of the park and basically getting a crash course overnight in that and responding at 3 a.m. because, again, our product was going everywhere. So we were in all time zones, and, you know, we're a small group, and we had to be Amazon. And it was a testament to, I think, everybody being on the same page, again, to that humble thread of we just got to get these out and help people.
Yeah.
And that was the underlying mantra that we had, and that stayed true in the way we responded to people. And the other thing that was happening congruently was we weren't the only people that were putting ads out there for this. There was a flood of companies that, you know, they weren't as fast as us, that's for sure.
Yeah, and some were scams.
But there were a lot that were scams, and a lot of them that just didn't go about it correctly. They were putting out ads that showed sexy models putting on their mask in a bra, or a shirtless dude with a six-pack. Dude, it's a fucking pandemic. Nobody knows what the hell's going to go on. Like, is this?
I forgot about that.
Is this the end times? Like, what's going on, man? So don't sell me sexy lingerie on the face, you know? And that really pissed me off as a, you know, creative arm of advertising, because everything in advertising is built on the insight of the human brain and emotion and how they're going to react to what you're putting in front of them. And the human insight at that time was, holy fuck. Literally, that was the insight. How do you get product into the hands of somebody who is saying that in their mind and scared, unsure, and in need? So from a marketing standpoint, how do you the way you do that is with comfort, trust, and compassion and unity. And those words right there were the framework of how we went to the market to get our message out there. And I think of all the organic shares and the viral elements to what we put out there, it was all based around the mantra. It was the why behind why we were putting these masks out of. We just want people to feel like there's a unification here, that these are scary times. Think about the person across from you.
Right.
And people, they got it instantly. They saw that mantra on the mask. They knew why it was there. And they wanted other people to feel that mantra during the scary times too. So,
yeah. And I think to what you said earlier, Chris, you know, this is you talked about the company that had the naked bodies, or, you know, men with their shirts off and the masks on there. Then you compare what we did to the other, and that goes back to where this whole conversation started, was the reason behind it, right? They were doing it to make money. Mm-hmm. We were doing it to provide a help, a service, and then be able to provide money to our team and to help people along the way. We initially established from the beginning, we're going to donate a portion to, you know, different people involved that needed help. So our vision from the very beginning was always to help people. And all of a sudden, when these other, you know, fake companies popped up, or these BS companies popped up, they were literally trying to sell a product and nothing else. And that's fine. That's business. That's the strategy of that CEO or owner or whoever it is. Kudos to them for doing it that way. We don't operate that way. Mm-hmm. And that I think everything you said was just super powerful. And I remember Chris and I had a conversation about that, and everything he just said was accurate as far as like, hey, we got to build a brand in a short amount of time, and we have to execute this the right way. The way to do that is to unify. The way to do that is to comfort people. And the way to do that is to let people trust you through messaging, because that's the only way.
Yep.
So it was wild. I mean, even, you know, for the following weeks after that, I mean, it took us a while to catch up on, you know, on the orders and everything. And, you know, I had people message us telling us we're pieces of shit. You know, I should have saved a lot of the stuff, and you don't think about it at the time. But, you know, we had the live chat on our website, and I remember this person told me they're going to like fucking rip our faces off and stab us in the throat and kill us. And it was like the most absurd messaging ever that people actually write into something like that. Mm-hmm. And it's also kind of scary because they're battling something. You're dealing with every crazy Yahoo in the country at the time that has an opportunity to talk to us, and they know who we are.
Yep.
So it was really weird. And again, another learning lesson is how do you take that situation and run with it, and how do you let that situation become a building block for the future of something else that you may go through. And like you said earlier, bring it on. Like, there's nothing that can come across our desk that I don't think we can handle because of that.
Yep. And everything we experienced with that the whole past 9 months, also allowed us to offer more things to our digital blueprint marketing clients and new clients of, whether they were a tangible in-store type of product service or fully an online service that, they never really had to put 100% effort into their digital strategies. We had, no pun intended, we had the blueprint at that point. We had it before, but the world changed and that blueprint had to be adjusted. And so now, things might change indefinitely in the world and in the United States as far as how people shop and interact with brands online and how they sign up for services, or even telehealth is the normal. I had a doctor appointment today on my laptop. Yep. And some things are going to become the norm from all of this, and that's where, if you're a business owner and you don't have a digital strategy, it's time to hunker down and say, how do I plan for the next 5 years, knowing that everything is going to be digital.
Everything is switching.
There's always the in-person aspects to all different kinds of businesses, but a lot of those start in the digital world. So if it's that new, that new chiropractor, that new car detailing service, physical things you go to, but how do you find them, and how do you feel trust and validity in that company before you even walk in that door?
What was, just out of curiosity, what was the craziest part about the whole, the life of the mask company for you? What does anything in particular stick out to you? Any experience, any, I know what I'm going to bring up after this, and we have talked about it, but I wanted to get if there was anything on top of mind on your end.
I think for me personally, as far as what was the most time consuming and late nights, it was the influx of companies that wanted their own masks. It got to the point where I had to rent my own warehouse office space with multiple monitors and just kind of my own.
Is that why you got the studio?
Yeah, my own thinking and scream space is what I kind of call it. Because, obviously working from home was the normal at the time with my, day job agency and then our agency and the masks. I just couldn't do it at home anymore. And,
did you know you were going to do that full time by that point?
I mean, it was the ultimate goal anyway. And, we were just like everybody else in the world, unsure of what was going to happen, but I knew I needed at least a space to go field the fury of what was coming in our door.
Right.
So yeah, I mean, I had two 36-inch monitors that I needed just to be able to have the amount of screens open to be designing, developing, and everything all at once. And there was no off. I just remember that there was no off switch during a day. So if I had to go run an errand or something, my laptop had to come with me.
Right.
And, countless times sitting outside at my girlfriend's mom's house, perched up on the outdoor patio, just continuing as soon as I get out of the car, flip it open, right back to it. So, I mean, really that first couple months, it was just nonstop. Sometimes I'd wake up in the middle of the night and just, I got to get back to it because it was subconsciously in my dreams, seeping through from, any type of metaphor reminding me that I had mountain of things to wake up to.
What about so from that about you waking up in the middle of the night? I know we talked in the past before about on Shopify how they can you see a map of the world, and at any given time it tells you who's live on your website. And I think at the peak we had over 300 people, 250 people at any given second that were on
nonstop.
So it was like, why I bring that up was because, a lot of people say, how do you get through these things? How do you keep going? Right. Well, that was another tool of motivation for us too, was it became an addiction that I had to check Shopify's, map of where people were on the website, because it showed me, holy shit, we got a lot of stuff going.
Yeah. And it again further put the human element into things, because I remember staring at that map in real time and, seeing places throughout the country that I love that are, home to another home. Like when I saw ping after ping after ping every second from Chicago, it was like a moment of, that's always going to be my second home at Chicago. And knowing that our product that we made here in Pittsburgh and bred from an idea of, human compassion is going to help, my peeps back in Chicago that I'm removed from now. I remember seeing tons of pings come up from Brooklyn, New York, and that's a place that's very special to me too. And
Chris stays in a hostel when he goes to New York. So if you ever get to talk with him about that, ask him for this little 4 foot by 6 foot hostel that he stays in.
Yep, it has no ceiling. You can hear the person breathing next to you. They give you earplugs to try and sleep at night. And
how much is it a night?
$79.99
in New York. So
in the Lower East Side. Shout out to the Bowery House.
There you go.
That is one of my sacred spots in the United States. Highly recommend it.
That's where all the weirdo creative ideas come from.
Yeah, I met some cool Swedish people there. There was a couple there. It was a male model and a female model from Sweden, and it was joint bathrooms.
Oh, they loved it too. Europeans love that.
Yeah, it's totally normal for them.
Yeah.
It's weird to us. But I remember I was in there shaving, wearing a Guns N' Roses t-shirt, and they were both in there naked just because it's Sweden.
Yeah.
It's normal. And they were both way taller than me. I just remember that. Like, I'm 6 foot, and both the woman and the man were like probably 6'2" to 6'4".
Right.
And they were both just beautiful blonde human beings. And I remember the guy just struck up conversation with me while I was shaving, clothed in a Guns N' Roses t-shirt, and he was doing his hair naked next to me with his very beautiful Swedish model wife next to him. And he commented on my shirt, like, Guns N' Roses, yeah. And I was like, oh, yeah, are you a fan? He's like, not really. Are they like the Justin Bieber's? And I just remember being like, whoa. And I was like, how's your, is this your first time in the States? And he was like, yes. And I was like, what do you like? And he was like, the girls. We like the girls.
I love
and I
Europe.
just remember being like, you know what? I don't have this experience in this moment elsewhere. It's a weird, fun moment to engage with somebody from another country, whether they have clothes on or not. And in this, little piece of history in New York, and I went about my day like that was just a normal piece of it.
Yep.
And so I like to have weird experiences that you can always look back on. And sometimes when things get kind of mundane and boring, you can kind of put yourself back into the weird that kind of helped you grow a little bit.
For sure.
So I always recommend that you could go spend $600 in a really nice fancy hotel for 2 nights in Manhattan, or you could spend $160 and really get the underground.
And what was the name of the place again?
The Bowery House.
The Bowery House. Check them out.
And also the greatest pizza in America is right around the corner, Prince Street Pizza.
Perfect.
It is, I remember eating it in the pouring rain on a late Thursday night, and it was just raining, and I was hiding under this abandoned storefront. And it's the kind of place where you go in, You order, kind of like Soup Nazi from Seinfeld. You have to know what to say, and if you don't, they yell at you. If you ask for ranch, they will literally throw you out because it's a no-no in like authentic Italian New York. And I just remember sitting outside under this storefront in the pouring rain, and I ate it, and it was just like an out-of-body experience. Like, this is something beyond humanity, this pizza. And I didn't have a napkin, and my face was just covered in grease, and I just took off the bandana I wore around my arm, wiped off my mouth. Still smelled like the pizza was fresh. I saved that bandana.
I was going to
never washed it. Still in my drawer right now. If I want to smell Lower East Side New York pizza, it's right there.
So you got to get a creative weirdo / genius that's into that stuff if you want to have a successful business. But no, it is, and talking about this stuff actually makes me miss traveling like crazy. And, the part of the creative side, even on me being in the fashion world, is to experience different cultures and to experience different, events. And, every state in the country is like a different country in the country. So, I definitely miss all that stuff too. And, but it's crazy, circling back on the masks and what we've kind of accomplished with all that stuff and getting through all the headaches of everything. It's certainly been an eye-opening experience that has allowed the three of us and our team and our marketing agency and all the other companies that we're involved in to just grow and be better and put ourselves in a better position to do more for other people, to help other people. And part of what we do with the marketing is we market for other companies. And the greatest part about that is the camaraderie that we feel about being on a team and being able to help people grow. So it's a cool process all in all. But the mask business, the mask journey, a lot of people have asked about that. It was incredible. It opened up our lives, our opportunities. It allowed both Chris and Derek to join the marketing full time. And then once we got through that first couple of weeks and months of the mask business, it seemed like everything else started flowing with that, which was pretty cool to see.
Yep. And also kind of the icing on the cake, I think, as far as where that entire initiative started with wanting to help people from the humble instinct to kind of like the end cap on it. 'Cause at this point, everybody has a million masks in their car, in their pocket, in their house, or you can get it at the checkout at Giant Eagle or whatever. So really the end cap for me was when we were able to donate, tens of thousands of dollars to Allegheny Health Network here locally in Pittsburgh. And shout out to them and Chelsea and all the great people at AHN that do a lot of good things for the community. But we were able to use resources to help AHN get more resources and for something we believe in, and that's telehealth. And, again, that comes back to the digital world that is going to continue, overtaking every industry. And frankly, the pandemic accelerated that by a number of years of where it might have gone normally. So, investing brain power and resources into the community to help in that digital world, that's something we're all about as a actual digital marketing company. And that's why we're really trying to help, small businesses even in the area or friends of ours that own businesses to get them through this. And, for some people it's a cup of coffee and some advice, or it's a text, answering a question of what would you do in this scenario situation. And we find a lot of value in being able to give that kind of advice and direction for these business owners. And we don't want anything in return. It's, again, comes back to the humble factor of why we do business. And it's never been more apparent than it is now, literally in a pandemic. And so I think we're all excited to get to 2021 here in a few days and kind of feel the hope of a new day, a new year, and hope that things are going to turn the corner to some kind of normalcy again. But I think, I know for me personally, all of 2020, it kind of really boils you down to what you're made of and what's underneath. And to come out of that year in a better place than I was in the whole decade leading up to it, in every facet, and you know who I am as a person and everything. That in 10 years, if I tell somebody about 2020, I have a lot of good things to tell them about my growth in that year. And then they might say, well, wasn't that the pandemic year? And yeah, it was, but that's where I really had to grind my teeth and figure out who I am. And, you know, that's a tough lens for, I think, a lot of people to put on because of the hardships and everything. But if you can get through something like this, it's going to make, you know, a bad Tuesday feel like nothing.
Yeah. And you know, kind of wrapping up with everything here. And I think it's the highlight of perspective. And, you know, every situation that you run into as a small business owner or whatever you're doing, it's all about perspective on, you know, how to get there. And, you know, if anybody needs help, just, you know, part of what we do is the fact that we love helping people. So we'll take time to, you know, answer questions, address anything, at least give some guidance to get you in the right direction. And, you know, if you ever need services or anything that we do, just call us. It's, you know, we want to be a part of a community, and that's what everything's about. And I think, and we'll figure this out too, but we're, you know, this is the first episode that we've done. We're still trying to iron out everything. So we're open for feedback on maybe things that we can do to end the show. Maybe there's business questions that people may have. You know, maybe we do something where every week we go on Instagram Live, or we do something on Instagram where we take questions and then we address those questions at the end of the show. So if there's anybody listening, you have any cool ideas, you want something more that you can get that's tangible, you know, we don't want this just to be about something that passes time. You know, even if we have helped one business or one business owner, or even somebody that's just struggling with something internally that they're going through, that they listen to this and it just allows them to keep fighting and keep going. That's what this is all about. And that's where we tie in the name, The Common Threads, as well, is the fact that you don't have to only be in business. You don't have to only be a celebrity, an athlete, or whatever it may be. A lot of the times is just the commonality and the common thread of what holds humanity together. And I think that's what makes this so much fun and why we've been so excited about doing it. You know, of course, we're going to have cool celebrities, athletes, business people on here. That just is icing on the cake. But the true fundamentals and the true values of what we offer is just every day keep pushing forward and keep going forward with what we're doing.
Well said. And with that, I'm Chris.
And I'm David Allen.
And this was the first episode of Common Threads.